Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Headmaster's Homeroom. I am Lady Hamilton. It's such a pleasure to have you all join me tonight. Thank you so much. We have a jam-packed evening. I have three guests. It's the first time I've ever had three guests on, so I'm excited about that. And we're going to go in order of our youngest, Iago, that's going to be here, arriving here shortly. And I have a great story to share with you about him. And then we're going to go from guest to guest. So everyone, we've got Leigh Dundas in the house that's coming later. And of course, Ed Dowd to finish us off tonight. So welcome, everyone. It's a true pleasure. So I wanted to also talk to you guys about something. I know that I've wanted to kind of give you some updates. My producer, Scott, is amazing, and a huge shout out to him. He lives in Maui, and he's been going through these fires. You guys saw him last Sunday as he came on my show to give you updates. And what we're seeing in the news, they have still like 1,000 plus more that are just missing and unaccounted for. So we want to keep our prayers and everything that we can do with our friends in Maui. I'm going to share something here with you. Let me get that up here, because he shared a link with me. Let's post that right there, of a great way that you guys can help if you wanted to donate. I know sometimes money just doesn't seem to get to the people that actually need it, and boy, they need it. So he's working with some churches that the money 100% goes straight to the citizens of Hawaii. And so if you guys feel like that you want to help, that would be really wonderful. And the link here is below. I will also include all the links in my show and ways to help in our description boxes, also in the permanent chats below here on Rumble. So please get to Rumble if you want to find anything out about our guests, or how to help, or where to find their stuff. That would be lovely. I am just going to also let you know that I wanted to talk to you about our sponsor. They definitely did go through a really rough time as well. They lost a lot of their inventory, and they're gonna, they're lucky that they are alive and everything is okay. They're, physically doing okay. But I absolutely love their honey. You guys know that I cook with it all the time. It's some of the best honey in the world. And I'm going to show you one of my favorites. I mean, I have favorites. I love them all. I still have a few to still try. But I wanted to highlight this one here tonight. Look at this beautiful color. Look at this beautiful color. This is the organic dragon fruit honey. And I really love this one when I'm making like dressings, or especially with jalapenos. If you're going to do something with jalapenos, they are really wonderful. So before my guests arrive, I wanted to give a huge shout out to Be Nourished. And our prayers and thoughts are with you. And from the beautiful, it's from the beautiful island of Maui. They had some of the most gorgeous flowers. I remember Scott telling me that like a mile-long strip of just some of the most beautiful flowers in Hawaii that they were getting this beautiful honey for. So prayers and huge shout outs. I can't promise that you would get your honey right away, but I do know that they would be thrilled with your help and your support. So with that being said, here's Be Nourished.
Honey. It's one of the greatest gifts to man. With millions of wildflowers in every bottle, the nourishing power of honey is still yet to be fully discovered. Be Nourished Healing Products combines healing ingredients from around the planet to the purest honey from the island of Maui to bring magic to your taste buds. The best honey from the most beautiful place to nourish your body, mind, and soul. From our hearts to yours, be nourished.
So I was just checking on our first guest, to make sure everything was okay, and hopefully he'll be here in just a short few minutes. But I want to tell you a little story about Iago. I talk about this a lot. I talk about all youth are possible. And, you know, I've told you guys that you guys can help in a matter of ways that you don't even know how you could touch lives. And I met this young man when I was at CPAC, and he's 19. He might be older now. He might have turned 20, but I believe he was 19 when we met a few months back. And he didn't go to my school. I had never met him before. And I was so blessed because I got to interview like four different young Americans, and they were doing amazing things in their communities. And he was absolutely one of them. By the time I was then interviewing these four, I was just in absolute tears. And I have that on previous episodes, some of my first episodes, I would say. Um, but he really touched my heart. His story, his love for our nation, being an immigrant here, and just his family and the love and the life that he's led, and the service that he gives was just something unbelievable. And because I have children with disabilities as well, I was able to reach out with him and share avenues for him to find, future possibilities for him. And again, like I said, I didn't know him beforehand. He didn't go to my school, but I was able to reach out a hand in friendship and help guide him to a possibility of, a future that he wanted. And through that relationship, when he emailed me or texted me back, and I was so thrilled to hear of his bright future, and we're going to talk about that soon, and how much I had touched his life, I just was in utter tears. I just am so thrilled to help any youth know that they are possible and that their future is possible. And we can do that. We can help somebody else. Even if you don't have children, you never know what lives you're going to touch with just being able to reach out, share your wisdom, and do stuff for our youth, because they absolutely need it. And it's just that symbol of reaching out your hand and being a friend and sharing what you know and your knowledge with them so that they can have a bright and wonderful future. So I'm going to welcome Iago to our broadcast now, and we're going to talk about exactly what's going on in his life.
Hey, Lady Hamilton, how are you? It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Hi, Iago. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it is absolutely my pleasure. I was just telling a little bit about our story before I invited you on, that we had met at CPAC, and I had met you and your mom, and I also, I believe, it was just an amazing connection. What an amazing night, because I had like four of you youth doing amazing things. Do you want to tell them, like, okay, what have you been doing before now? And, why you went to CPAC, but just, I mean, with your time and I don't know how long you were in the States at this time, but you jumped right to the call as a young patriot of America, and you got busy. And you want to tell everybody a little bit about that?
Yes, sure, of course. So I moved to the US in 2013, and when I moved to the US, I was 9 years old. And I'm from Brazil originally, and I was really upset with the politics that it was going on in Brazil. We have a corrupt government in Brazil, a communist, a criminal actually in power, which is Lula da Silva, and I was really upset with politics in Brazil. But when I moved to the US, I went to school and I learned about American history, and I simply fell in love with the founders of this nation and the Constitution and the fact that our rights comes from God and not from government, and that we are not dependent on government to have our liberties. That simply amazed me. And I decided that I wanted to dive a little bit deeper in politics and get to know more about the freedom that we enjoy in this nation. So in 2020, I volunteered to be a Trump volunteer for the Trump campaign in 2020. And not many people know this, but I would like to share firsthand in your show that I prayed to God on the New Year's Eve of 2019. I prayed to God and I told God, I want to get involved in politics, but I don't know how to do that. So I went to a school which was called Smith Prep Academy, and it was a Presbyterian school where they taught me all about theology and government. And when I went to my school, I saw this guy with a Trump shirt, and I told him, "Hey man, I like your shirt." And then he told me, "So I'm recruiting teenagers
Oh,
to
nice.
help on the Trump campaign." And I was like, wow, how amazing is the Lord. You know, Jesus is amazing. When you consecrate your dreams and your desires to him, and if his hand is upon you and upon your projects, it will 100% be fulfilled. And from there, I got involved in the Trump campaign. I did 280,000 phone calls for President Trump in the 2020 elections. And then from there, a lot of people in the Republican Party of Florida is, started to know my story because people were telling one another, "Oh, he's a young man that did 280,000 phone calls for President Trump." And then from there, I never stopped going to CPAC since 2020, and I got involved in the teenage Florida Teenage Republicans. I was their chairman for 1 year. Then after that 1 year, I graduated high school, and that's why I couldn't run again. So I'm now their junior advisor, and now I'm in college.
Now you're in college. Well, you skipped over a few points there, Iago, because that's not the only person you made phone calls for. Am I correct?
Sorry?
Is I said that's not the only person you made phone calls for. Am I correct?
Oh yeah, you're correct. So I also helped some other congressional candidates. I did phone calls for, Governor DeSantis when he ran for re-election
Right.
as governor of Florida, and I also helped congressional candidate Laura Loomer when she ran for Congress in 2022 as well.
Right. And from what you were telling me, wasn't it about the same number of phone calls that you made?
No, actually, Trump, I did a little bit more because I had more time to do them. But when those other people called me to help in as a volunteer, I just had like 3 or 4 months to help them, so I did a little less.
A little. When he says a little less, I still think he's still reaching like 200,000 phone calls. Am I right?
Yeah,
So
I did.
maybe not 280,000 like you did with Trump, but it's like still 200,000 phone calls for each candidate that you helped. I
Yeah.
mean, you just amaze me at your service heart, honey. I mean, it's like, when you think that you can't do something and then you have a teenager go, "Well, I've made this many phone calls," it just blows me away how active you got. And I did not know you were an advisor now. That is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal. But it's been a challenge for you. You've texted me twice because you want to tell them about your immigration status.
Oh yeah, that's right. So when I went to CPAC in 2022, I was posting things on social media and all the things that were going on with me helping with the Trump campaign. My Instagram page was growing a lot.
Right.
And I even had the son of the former Brazilian president, which was the good president of Brazil that we had like in years, which was Jair Bolsonaro. His son Eduardo, he started sharing my posts, but I was kind of like criticizing the Biden administration too much. So then my parents' paperwork came in through the mail, and mine took a while to come in. My work permit, my social security, all of those stuff took a long time to come in. So I talked to my advisors, and they were like, "Iago, you know how harsh this the Biden administration has been on people that have been having conservative values, especially bold Christian values. So it's just better for you to take down your Instagram account for now, and God will provide a way. And I was praying, but I was still helping, behind the scenes, with
Yeah.
fighting the fighting communism and helping in the liberty fight. I was still helping behind the scenes, and that's when I was praying, and God made a miracle. He opened the path, and I believe just about a month ago, I received
Mhm.
my work permit and my social security. So I'm
Right.
looking for jobs. I'm looking to, keep fighting, and
Right.
keeping helping the liberty movement. But of course, always helping, America First candidates, and no establishments, because we have to be careful with the people that we connect ourselves. They have to be true patriots.
Right. I mean, I always say you got to judge somebody by their actions, not their words. And you got to be really careful about, who you surround yourself with, and make sure that you have like a power circle around you of friends or ones you can trust that are going to help you move along and lift you up versus pull you down and tear you down. Right.
That's true.
That is true. And we talked for a long time. It was a great weekend. And I don't even know if you know this too, because I remember that the son of the Brazilian or the president was there at CPAC, right?
He
Was
was.
it right? And so, what did you? I know that you did this because later on, I got a visitor at my table, and so do you want to tell everybody what you did? I mean, it was just such a connection between you and me that you were able to talk to him while you were there. And I don't know how or what you said to him. And maybe you could share that with everybody. You told him about me, and he came to hunt me down and find me to say that Iago sent me your way. And it was unbelievable. So I don't know what you said to him about me. Maybe you could share that, but
Yeah.
right.
So when I met you, Lady Hamilton, you were truly a blessing in my life, and you were telling me all about those things that I didn't knew. Opportunities for me to, have another path, not only politically but also on my studies, because
Mhm.
it's important for teenagers to be politically involved. Of course it is, but also education, is important. For
Right.
us to gain that knowledge and prepare ourselves more and more to read, because the Bible says that you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And the more we know, the more knowledge we have, the less chances the left has of deceiving us. So
Right.
you told me all about those programs and all those paths for me to take, and I was just so thrilled after I met you, that I was telling all my Brazilian friends about you and these great things that God have done in my life. And yeah, I believe I mentioned to him about you. And I think he got super excited for me, that I think he went to see you.
Yes, that is right. That is right. And there is no accidents, I mean, I think truly that we met on purpose so that I could, help you out, not only highlight you, which I just love to do. That's why I have this show, is to highlight others, but to actually help you, because I have youth. I told you that I have children, that needed certain avenues, or they had disabilities as well, and that we have so many avenues, especially for our children with, well, I should say especially, they're different avenues for children with disabilities, but there's so many avenues for our youth to become or find. I mean, scholarships, whether you go to college or trade school, or I mean, it's, or whether you wanted to build your own business. I mean, there's just so many opportunities for you that I don't think it was an accident that we met at all. You
Oh,
know, no.
yeah.
And I was so excited to receive your text when you said that you got your social security and that you're moving forward with your citizenship. Finally, I'm like, oh, thank you, God. Yes, that's so amazing. But that's not even your latest news. You just told me about your latest news. Tell everybody this story, please.
So I'm going to have this meeting with this persons of this program, the people of this program that you told me about,
Right.
and I'm going to have a meeting with them on August this month, August 19th. And I'm just super excited for what God is going to do. For now, I'm going to Seminole State, which is a university, which is a college here in Florida.
Right.
But after this meeting, that I'm gonna have with those people of this specific organization that you headed me to, I don't know what's going to happen. The doors that God can open. So I just have been truly praying about that, because who knows, maybe I can go and live in Virginia and go to Liberty University, which is like my dream, and help patriots,
Right.
or find a job that will open doors for my studies as well. So, who knows what could happen. God is just so amazing, and I have been glorifying him for that.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I always say my prayers, and I'm just, and in my prayers to him, even before I come on to the podcast, I say a prayer. And the number one thing I thank him for is my relationship with him,
Yeah.
and to know that we have that relationship. And I know that he exists. I know my Savior exists. And to have that relationship, and it means so much to me, more than I think that almost anything in this world could ever be, because it's not always easy, but
That's
I'm extremely grateful, because those times when it's not so easy, it makes it even more so. It makes it even more special, to have that ability to go to our Father and say, okay, I need your help, or this, and then you feel, at least with me, I'm like, I'm sitting here praying for my little things when there's so many other bigger problems out there. But he cares. He cares about us immensely. He wants to have our hearts. He wants to have our relationship with us. And he wants to give us blessings and help us with our lives. Even though there's a million times bigger tragedies out there, he still really cares about us individually, you know,
Amen.
right?
That's true, and that's such a blessing. And that's what I like to tell people that especially are involved in politics. Because that's the basis of everything that we do. If we want to have a firm foundation as conservatives, I like to tell people, and it's true, that there is no conservatism without a solid Christian worldview. Because when you say I'm a conservative, then it always begs the questions, well, what are we going to conserve? And for what? And for what purpose? And what is really interesting is that Jesus, on the Sermon of the Mountain, when he said that we were the salt of the earth, of the world, he used the analogy of the salt, because the salt at that time was meant to preserve and to conserve. So the church, when we stand up as solid Christians with a strong theology, if we have to be conservatives in politics, let's be conservative with our theology as well, and honor the fathers of the early church, and go back to the orthodoxy of things and start preaching the real gospel, because that's the only way that we are going to have a firm foundation for our conservative and Judeo-Christian worldview.
Right. And the foundation is so important, because you cannot build anything in this life without a firm foundation. I think a lot of times the word conservative also gets so much hatred, and it's not, because we want to conserve and protect our freedoms. We want to build our futures on firm foundations. We want to know that we're in a land, I mean, that's free, and people fought for that right. And I always encourage, at least my students, and encourage people that I meet and talk to, about going to a country that's communistic. And we didn't, I mean, I've not necessarily been to Brazil, but I've been to Cuba. And I've spent several months living with family. So it wasn't like the tourist scene. And we talked about this before, Iago. And just even though the people are amazing, but what they had to live through and the suppression they had to live through, when I got back home, I mean, I just was so thankful. And I've been around and I had patriotic parents that were military, but that experience alone, just it was a front window view, I should say, and literally living through that. I was so thankful to live in a country like the United States, where we have the freedom to express our voice or have religions. I even tell people that the right to not believe in God is also a freedom.
Mm.
There's several countries where they have a mandatory religion that you have to believe, and then you have to hide if you don't believe.
That's true.
Right. So just even having the freedom to say I don't believe is something that we value here, because you have your freedom of speech and your freedom of religion, and we have to continue to fight for those before they're gone. Our forefathers fought
Exactly.
for that so much to give us those rights, and it's something I know that both you and I treasure with all of our hearts.
Yes, we have to treasure those things, and the freedom of being individuals. It's so amazing that we are individuals and we are unique in our very own way, and people don't realize that, and they are too focused. The youth today is too focused on the collectivism.
Right.
you know that we all have to be the same, we all have to listen to the same music, and that stuff, and we have to follow the trend, like,
Right.
teenagers love to say, oh, you gotta follow the trend, you gotta follow the wave, you gotta follow what is popular. But when we actually stop and look around us for what truly matters, we know that at the last day, what is going to stand is God, faith, family, and country, and that's what is the firm foundation for this nation to be a great nation. And hopefully, we will never lose this freedom. And I pray that God can keep raising up great patriots to fight for our freedom. Because right now, like you said, things in Cuba are not easy. Things in Brazil are not easy. The dictator of the Brazilian Supreme Court, Alexandre de Moraes, just told the federal police of Brazil to put in jail a Christian singer that was in favor of Jair Bolsonaro. This just happened like two days ago. And Christians, when you attack a Christian for being a conservative and for being in favor of God, family, and country, this is just the beginning of an attack that could come upon the whole church. Then the government will start telling you how you should worship and
Mm-hmm.
what parts of the Bible you should read and which part of the Bibles you should believe and how to interpret the Bible, the scriptures. And we have to be careful with that, and that's why we have to know the scriptures and to know the Constitution as well before it's too late.
That's right. And that's right. And it's why we love, both you and I love history, because it does repeat. I mean, look at the Holocaust. You had, millions and millions of Jewish people that were taken and forced into camps and slaughtered and killed because of their faith and their belief. Because, in Germany at that time, you had to go in line with the order. There
Mhm.
was no choice. You were either this or you were taken away.
Yeah.
And and people, unfortunately, I even read statistics where people your age or younger don't even believe that the Holocaust existed. It's almost like up to 40% or so of our young ones that don't even believe that ever was. And that's because they take it out, but you've lived it, you've seen it, you probably still have family there, I would imagine. Yes.
Yeah, and that's, really, really unfortunate, when we just follow the same agenda that the government imposes on us. We we suffer a great risk, of rewriting history. And we should
Right.
never allow this to happen. When we allow people to rewrite history and tell us what to believe, is that's the greatest danger that could happen.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean that we want to whitewash history and take out all the bad parts. I think you need to know both good and bad. But rewriting it and inserting certain things, or reorganizing or however you want to do it is absolutely not a great thing. We need to make sure that we keep our historical records, intact, good or bad. We need to learn our
That
history. So tell me
that's
something, Iago. I wanted to ask you a question because you talked about following the trend. How hard is it for youth your age to go against what's popular and what's trendy? How's the
you
pressure
know
on you kids?
I think the greatest pressure, especially when you're talking about a teenager that doesn't know what to believe, is the and doesn't know their identity. I think the pressure it is for you to, because you don't want to feel left it out. When you don't have a good connection with God and you don't have a good connection with your family, um you try to find refuge on other things. And unfortunately, you know parents as well and families don't value anymore as much time with their kids, time on the table, talking to them, asking them how their day was, teaching them the word of God, teaching them, conservative and constitutional principles, because our founding fathers like George Washington said that this constitution was for a moral and religious people. Actually, I believe that was John Adams, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry, that was John Adams actually that said that this constitution was written for moral and religious people. And when we simply ignore that and think that the American dream is simply about making money, but it's much more than that. It's much more than just having financial stability. So, going back to your question, when the teenagers don't have a good connection with their family, especially, consequently, they will not have a good connection with God and with moral things. So they don't have no direction, because parents nowadays seem to believe that their kids will learn, everything on their own. But parents, your kids need you. Your your kids need you to guide them, because just like the scripture says, there's no one righteous, no, not one. So we were born, it's time for us to say the truth. According to the scriptures, everyone was born, sinful. We were born in a sinful world. Original sin is real. We inherit that from Adam. So when we simply ignore that we are evil, and that, parents think that they don't need to teach their kids, you know we just, try to find refuge on other things. And what are, you know kids learning nowadays in schools is about drugs, is about, that it doesn't matter how many people you sleep with, that you are just this phrase that is very deceiving is, oh, you're just perfect, just the way you are. And then you think that just because you're perfect the way you are, you have to live your own truth. And then that just takes you downhill, that just takes you to a actually dark place. And that's what I think is the hardest part for teenagers, is because when you don't have a good connection with God and with your parents, and they don't teach you, morals, and they don't teach you to fear God, there's only two ways: or the dark or the light. And then teenagers just fall for the trend, for what is popular, which is darkness.
Yes. And that so breaks my heart because I remember, again, not to bring up Cuba again, but It's true. When I was in Cuba, and it's funny because we didn't really have internet access. You had to go to special parks and you had to buy it if you wanted it. But people in I went on a study abroad. So the other students were younger, probably your age now, that went with me and my group, and they're still on their phones. And how they're on their phones or taking pictures, or maybe, I don't know. But the Cubans would look at it going, "What, we're eating dinner right now?"
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they would just kind of be floored that you had your face in a phone and you were distracted instead of spending time with your family. And, I think it could start as simple as that. I love it when people have like the no cell phone zone, or parents, this is a great idea, dinner time around the table, the no cell phone zone, and spend times. Ask your kids. I don't care if they get upset. What did you learn today? What are you, get involved, ask them questions, and I think that's a great start. I don't know if you agree with that, but those conversations need to be the beginning. You need to be involved in your children's lives. You need to know what's happening. And so did you see this? I guess not. You went to a private school, right?
So I studied half of my life in a private school. Like the end of my high school year, I studied in a private school, but my whole elementary and middle school I studied in a public school, at a public school.
Oh, then you saw this, especially in middle school. I mean, they're starting younger and younger, but middle school is like the target. And that's when they start messing with you, I think, the most. And then, of course, you have the bullying and the fitting in and the fades. And how difficult was that for you to go through that time?
Well, for me was kind of tough, I would say, because is everything is new and you are a brand new teenager. You just turned 13, and when you see yourself, you're wow, middle school. This is real, and then you're like changing classes every
Mhm.
40 minutes. You
Right.
have your friends that are popular. You have the popular guys that play football, that play soccer, and then those buff guys, those strong guys that want to be cool, they are the ones sometimes that want to fit in with the pretty girls. And then that's when it just gets messy,
Right.
because they don't value each other. They just
Right.
go and say, oh, I have a boyfriend, I have a girlfriend, but there's no serious commitment. And I
Right. And there shouldn't be. You guys are
yeah,
12, 13 years old.
yeah, and there shouldn't be. They don't even know what they are gonna do the next day, if they're gonna have you know they don't even know what they want for their future yet. you
Right.
know and it was kind of hard for me, because I didn't understood, at first, my my identity in Christ. But I was always a believer. I grew up in church, but I was still growing up on my relationship with the Lord, on my fellowship with the Lord.
Right.
And it was kind of tough. Sometimes the enemy puts temptation out there for you. Oh, come on, you should fit in. You should do the same things at other that other teenagers are doing. You
Right.
should look for those little things. And
Right.
sometimes my mind was doubting, because that's how the enemy works. It works in your mind and putting temptation. But my family, I don't know if you know how Latina moms are, but
Hmm.
my mom was pretty tough with me, and my dad too. My dad was a pastor, so of course the temptation comes, but I always stood strong in my faith with the Lord. And
Yes.
thank God that season has passed away, and now I just
And you
encourage
got stronger.
yeah, and now I just encourage other teenagers to do the same. Keep strong with the Lord, and He will honor
Well,
you.
it's such a hard time. I think that's why they focus on that age so much. And I'm sure you didn't have teachers. I hope you had better than what my own son went through. But they just thought, okay, he's legally blind. You are not going to accomplish anything. So, we're not even going to mess with you. We're not going to show you the avenues. And I don't know if you went through the same thing, but the public school systems are horrid. And I'm really grateful you have a wonderful mother and father that didn't take that. that decided, you know what, you are their everything, and that you're possible, and that and I don't even know if people even know your disabilities, because you can't hardly tell. But even despite a disability, you are going to make your life wonderful and accomplish great things. So that's the power of wonderful parents, just active parents.
That,
I mean, we're all just trying, honestly speaking, as a parent, we're trying the best we can. But if you have a great relationship, or you're trying to have a great relationship, and you're active in your kid's life, it makes a difference. And you're a great example of that. I mean, your mama, I've met your mama, and I know Latina mamas, right? And they're not taking no crap, especially with their kids. But not
yes,
everyone has that. Not
yes,
everyone has that. And I'm really thankful that she was, she's amazing. And your father as well. It's very important to have both role models in your life. Um, so tell us about your future. And I know that you're going to college. You're working on getting a full scholarship, because this is the program, everyone. It's, we have a wonderful program called vocational rehab that helps people, youth. It's basically for adults, but youth and adults, to be able to find pathways forward to go to school and go to a job. So you're meeting with them in a few weeks.
yes, in a few weeks. And, you know, to be honest with you, this is all new to me. So I don't know what to expect on that meeting. But, you know,
Well, I'll tell you what. If they tell you that they can't help you, you just put me right on that phone, because sometimes we have to still fight. It
okay.
seems like they have they don't want to give you the money, although our taxes go straight to this, and I'm happily do I give my taxes for programs like this. But even recently with my own son going to college, because, I've gone through this, I was like, oh, you're not going to do this. And I went and ended up telling them the rules. I know them so well. I was like, I don't think so. You're supposed to provide this, 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 and this, and this. And they were like, by the time I was done, I've been dealing with the actual regional manager, because, and she was mortified, because the other caseworkers were saying, well, no, or, we're not going to help, or we just want to put you to work real fast. And I was like, no, you're not. My son wants to go to college, and that's what these programs are for.
Yeah.
So I'm one of those mama bears. So they give you any fits whatsoever. You just text me right away and be like, oh, I know, Lady Hamilton.
Thank you so much, Lady Hamilton. I
Well,
will definitely do that if
right.
needed.
Right?
Yes.
I do not want them playing with any of you. I mean, this is, again, a program that I happily pay taxes for, so that you guys have a successful future of what you want. And what is it that you want to achieve with your education? Where do you see yourself here in the future?
So I see myself doing foreign policy, you
Okay.
know, because God has given me a gift that I speak many languages, I
Hmm.
speak Portuguese, I speak Spanish and English, and I'm looking forward to learning more languages.
Nice.
And I want to work for diplomacy and for the Department of State.
Okay.
So,
Nice.
and put like real conservatives in there, put real patriots in there that will actually put America first. And
Right.
from there, I on my free time, I want to help missions, preaching the gospel, translating for other countries, helping the persecuted church
Oh, I
in
love.
any way possible, in any way that I can. And it's amazing. That's what I want to
Well,
do.
I love that. And I have another little idea, because when I was in my undergrad, on the side, I started building a program called We Read. And it was for younger ones, but it was in the library. And a lot of people who were coming to actually get their citizenship and go through the right courses, you have to learn English, and you have to be able to know, like, the pledge and things like that. And they started hearing and coming to this, even though it was on third grade level or lower, they still didn't know English. And having somebody be able, because I speak Spanish too, everyone. So having the ability to translate and help them learn how to read at baby steps was helping them with their citizenship and their classes, so that they could go through the proper channels to become actual citizens. So you might want to start there. It's a great a great cause, and you would be a great advocate, and I love it because I know how much you love to serve. So we'll talk about that in our future once you get all through this, because it's something great to do while you're at school or college. It's another great way to find more scholarships as well, because people love to give scholarships to those who give back to the community.
E- e-
And I think you would be great at helping these ones that are really fighting like you are. And firsthand how hard it's been to get your citizenship. And
Oh,
to kind of give back would be amazing, right?
oh yeah, and that's what I have been working on as well. Now that I'm finally back on Instagram, that's what
Yeah.
I have been working on, which is spreading conservative values for other people that don't speak English yet, or that they're in the process of
Yeah.
becoming citizens. What I'm doing on my Instagram page is that I'm translating quotes and
Nice.
speeches from Ronald Reagan and quotes from our founding fathers for people to see and learn how to fight for freedom. And maybe that will inspire other nations to fight for freedom as well. And that's what our founding fathers truly intended with foreign
Mhm.
policy. It was not for our country to just go and lend money to other nations, but to
Right.
truly inspire them to fight for freedom. And that's what I have been doing. I'm still open on helping candidates and looking for that kind of
Too.
job, but I feel like my main mission
Mhm.
is to spread conservative values and inspire other people to fight for liberty as well and love this country and our founding.
Oh, I love it. You inspire me, Iago. You do, because when I sit here and think, okay, how can I give? And I look at somebody your age that's giving so much, you
Thank you so much.
inspire me. So you talked about your Instagram, and I know we have to wrap things up here, but tell everybody how to find you, because you've talked about your Instagram a lot. And I'm going to write it down and make sure I share it on my permanent chat below so that people know how to find you too. So share it with us.
All right, so my Instagram page is Iago, IAGO, BR 1776. So it's pretty easy for people to find me there
Love
because
it.
I have a short name. So yeah.
Love it. I'm writing it down so I can put it in our permanent chat and our description box. So everybody, if you want to find Iago, it's Iago BR 1776, and I love that. My parents had that as their last four digits of their number, and they've had that for decades. My mom, before she passed, said she wouldn't even change a phone without keeping that number. It meant so much to her.
Oh
So I
yeah.
love that. Well, honey, I am so appreciative that you've come on here tonight to share your story of inspiration and service. And I'm so proud of you. And I'm
Thank
just
you.
thrilled that we're friends. And I'm thrilled that I can help be a part of your life. And I
Thank
mean
you.
that. I mean that.
Oh yes, I know. Thank you so much, Lady Hamilton. I really appreciate. Thank you so much for everyone that is watching us right now. And I think we actually have some people in Brazil watching us because I sent the link for people. So we have
You want to
Brazil.
say something to them before you leave? Go ahead.
Alright. Então, galera, antes de eu me despedir, eu quero mandar um abraço para todos vocês que estão me assistindo aí no Brasil e que vocês nunca venham desistir de lutar pela liberdade. Se inspirem nos pais fundadores da América, se apeguem a Jesus, que é o mais importante de todas as coisas. Deus abençoe vocês.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. Thank you so much. And I'm sure, like, if you have any problems, like I said, reach out to me and I'll see everything I can do, and keep in touch with me because I love hearing your progress. Okay.
All
And
right, with
before I
that,
leave, you got to give your mama kisses and your dad some hugs for me. Okay. Because they're very special people.
all right. Thank you
All
so
right.
much, Lady Hamilton. Thank you for
My
everything you
pleasure,
do.
honey.
God bless you.
Ya besos y abrazos. Que tenga una buena noche.
Você também. Bye, bye.
Bye bye. I just telling him hugs and kisses and have a good night, if you don't speak Spanish. But I love that young man. I mean, I love when our youth inspire me because it just gives me so much hope for our future, and to be able to help them and give them avenues for their future. It's what I do. It's the reason I built my school. I mean, can you imagine if I'm just helping people on the side, what I'm doing with the youth? God really came to me to help, inspire me to open up a school, because these times are absolutely crazy. We're seeing that in the public schools. We're seeing, hints that this might come around again. I mean, I am just done. I'm done what our youth are going through. And if we just don't stand up and fight for them and provide a better future for them, then who will? And it's just that easy, everyone. It could be somebody that you just meet. You might think that you're too old, but we have such words of wisdom and we've lived so much life that you have no idea how you might be able to help somebody, even if you don't have children. How wonderful it is that you could help someone. So I am thrilled to death that I was able to be a part of his life and continue to be a part of his life and show him things that we happily pay taxes to support people. And this was a program, if you don't know, it's called vocational rehab, and it helps people with disabilities, mainly too, also if you're blind or you're deaf, and that's how I know about it. And it's just, again, something I would happily pay our taxes for, so that our youth have avenues, scholarships, and people that guide them and walk with them so that they can create their futures. I mean, that's one of the things I love about having the school, because I say this all the time. As educators, it's our job to provide foundations so that they can have critical thinking minds and have their futures that they want. Not futures that are indoctrinated, not futures that are messed up, where they're turning to no one because they don't think that they're possible, but to give them and lift them up so that they can go and live their dreams. And it's just been a pleasure to even help those that I run into and meet. And there was no accident, I am sure of it, that God put us two together. So that has been a true gift in my life. I love to serve. It's one of the reasons I have this show, everyone, is because I was so tired of not hearing about what other people are doing in the communities, that I was blessed. Thank you, my beautiful producer, Scott, for giving me a platform where I can highlight this kind of thing. I can highlight people in our nation. I can show you that you're not alone. I can show you what we're doing. And we've got some other guests coming up here soon. As soon as they arrive, I'm expecting Miss Leah here. I'm going to pull up her bio, because, man, it's just unbelievable what people are doing. And I want you to be aware of all these wonderful things that are going on in our nation. This next guest is going to be a little, hard for me personally. I mean, I love it. I love what she's doing. But when you talk about, we're going to be talking about trafficking and the things that she's doing to help fight trafficking. And I don't know if you guys know, maybe you're the first time you've ever been here, but I have been a foster mom and adopted mother now of 3 children who lived this life. And there were siblings that lived this life. And it's mortifying, horrifying. When we went to go see The Sound of Freedom, I took my youngest, thinking I was worried about that, thinking it might disturb her. And she was like, that was a pretty moderate version of what she had lived through, or what her family had lived through. And so, but, if we heard the true stories, I think that sometimes we just probably would not be able to take that. And so to be able to have 3 young ones that have gone through a life of trafficking, a life of drug abuse and sexual abuse, and to be able to have them and raise them, because they were told, my son is legally blind, and they all have disabilities, and being told that they were not going to be anything. Now I have 2 in college and 1 is going to graduate this year. This is why I stand up so firm for our youth, because I truly believe all youth are possible. But this is a very tender topic for me, and I want to make sure that I introduce her. And I was reading about our wonderful guests, and she has an amazing new book out. So let me tell you about Leigh. Leigh Dundas is a human rights attorney and an abolitionist dedicated to preserving basic freedoms while also combating global injustices like child slavery and the peddling of medical tyranny disguised as progress. Leigh's career spanned 3 decades, commencing with her representation of Fortune 500 companies in high-dollar courtroom battles in the early 90s, while focus changed on humanitarian work a decade ago when she joined with anti-slavery NGO as her general counsel. I also wanted to share this quote that's an excerpt from her book, and it is called Just Stand Up. But this is a beautiful quote. It says, I've now made it safely to what is ground zero of the red light jihad region where radicalized Muslim bombers are seeking to liberate an Islamic state. Since my last trip to this town of 140 child brothels and 2 hotels that I usually stay at were bombed. After the sun went down tonight, we traveled through this no man's land and leaves one questioning whether hell is truly reserved for those who've passed. The last photo captured in garnished colors and unflinching light in juxtaposition that keeps me coming back to this work. These girls are being raped for profit multiple times a night by men 5 times their age, and it was unequivocally the fastest growing criminal economy on this planet. Their only witness, the teddy bears lining every corner of their rooms. I told you this would be a little hard. When you have kids who've lived through this, it's very hard to read this, but this is such an amazing woman. I am more than honored to welcome Leigh Dundas. Hi, Leigh, you're muted. Nope, I can't hear you now. She'll get that figured out just 1 minute. So I love it when people stand up and make a difference in our youth's lives. I'm just, like I said, I'm so honored, and I can't wait for you to be able to tell everybody, because I'm curious about this journey of yours. I'm thankful for this journey of yours. And you're still muted? Oh, okay. You know, while we're doing this, everyone, I'm going to show you a picture of her book. So let's get that up here. I'm going to add that to the stream so you can see this wonderful book that she has written. And let me just add that to the stream. There we go. This book is called Just Stand Up. It's absolutely amazing. It talks about her journey that she has gone through to fight for freedom with these brothels from Asia to the streets of America.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Yay! I'm going to remove that. We'll bring that back up, everyone. So welcome. I am so honored. If you want to tell everybody a little bit about how you got involved in this, I know you're a civil rights attorney, so that's a huge start. But you know, what landed you in this world?
Well, that's a really good question, Lady Hamilton. And again, thank you for having me. I said that the first time, but I was just a bunch of moving lips and no sound. It's an honor to be here tonight, especially with a fellow warrior for children. I know you've adopted 3 of your own, and my heart just goes out to you, because I know the kind of work and love and courageousness of soul and spirit that's required to do that. For my part, my journey into the sex trafficking realm started a decade ago. My husband and I had sold our business at the time, and we had a little bit of time and a little bit of money all at the same time. You know, if you're a small business owner, it's often one or the other, but not both. And we decided to take my 8-year-old daughter out of school in Orange County and travel to Australia and New Zealand, and we were visiting friends from church down there. We put my daughter in private school down there. We were going to be there about a half year, and almost instantaneously, I got incredibly bored. I had never not worked. I'd always, from the time I was 3 years old, just been in school full time. I started college when I was 14. I got into Yale Law School when I was 17. I just worked, whether it was in school or work, 24/7, 7 days a week, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And so after about 3 days, I decided I would start reaching out to nonprofits that were operating in Australasia, in that half of the world, to see if they would let me volunteer. And I'd like to tell you it was a resounding success, that these nonprofits who are so in need of help were like, oh, awesome, an extra set of hands, come on board. But it was the exact opposite.
Right.
I'd call and I'd say who I was, and they'd say, where are you from again? And I'd say, California. And you could hear them rolling their eyes on the phone. They'd be like, oh, a soccer mom from California, a do-gooder who wants to help. Click. And I mean, it was just rejection after rejection. But I finally started pounding the pavement and knocking on real doors, much to the same end. And then a few weeks later, persistence does pay off. We were traveling at that point in New Zealand, and my phone rang, and it was a 714 area code. And we had traded in our American cell phones for, the New Zealand, Australian versions. So the only one who had our cell phone number in that area of the world were our parents. And it wasn't my parents' number, but it had a 714 area code, which is, of course, the area code for where we live in Orange County. And I thought, that's weird. And I picked up the phone, and it was a gentleman just like you, Lady Hamilton. It was actually his wife, and they had adopted 2 Vietnamese orphans out of an orphanage. And their heart broke that they couldn't adopt all of the ones in need. Right. And so they decided to open up their own Vietnamese orphanages. And they'd been doing that in addition to running restaurants here in Orange County, which was their primary job, for years. But they were starting to see a lot of sex trafficking issues that came in through the children that moved in and out of their homes. Yeah. And they had arranged a meeting with the Vietnamese prime minister, some high up muckety-muck. And they had friends from church, because their mission was, of course, orphanages, not sex trafficking per se, but friends of theirs from a big church here in Orange County were the executive crew of an anti-sex slavery nonprofit that was operating overseas. And they were all set to converge on Da Nang, Vietnam on May 23rd. And they called me up out of the blue and invited me to that meeting. And I remember I didn't even have a mute button on this horrible cell phone that we had in this foreign country. So I'm like, covering the microphone, and I'm looking at my husband in the car, and I said, hey, babe, mind if we go to Da Nang, Vietnam on May 23rd? And he goes, no, I'm kind of tired of looking at fuzzy little sheep here in New Zealand. We could blow this popsicle stand, but what is in Vietnam? And I looked at him and I said, I don't know, but I'm having a Kevin Costner moment. And I feel like if I build it, they will come. If I go, I will know why I went. And so off to Vietnam we went with my 8-year-old daughter in tow. I started meeting these folks who ran this anti-sex slavery nonprofit, and I volunteered for their organization for a few more months as we traveled through Cambodia and Thailand, and some of the brothel work there I became exposed to. And when I got back to Orange County, I had a job. Technically is their general counsel, which is the lawyer for the organization, but actually they had asked me to open their Southeast Asia office and start hiring undercover intelligence assets, former Navy SEALs, to go into the brothels and start busting them.
Oh, I love it. I was kind of chuckling on the side because I don't know if I've even told my audience. Before all this life, I was a chef for over 20-something years. So when you said that, I'm like, oh, wow, that's funny that I was also in the restaurant business. Right. And then when I got my kids, and going to school. But it's funny because after raising them and seeing what all the horrors they had gone through and living through all of this, I was just really inspired to build a school because, these kids, they still have these traumas. They still have to live through this life, and that just never goes away. And being able to help kids with disabilities or through art integration to help them heal somewhat the best we can. Yeah, it's really important to me. But it was just a little similarity, and it just blows me away. So how long have you been working for this organization now?
Well, I worked for them for just under a half decade. It was amazing work, difficult work, because I was spending half my time in Thailand in the brothel towns and half my time in Orange County. And, if you've never been to Thailand, there's no direct flights out of LA anyway. It's a 23-hour flight, and you have to go through Korea or Hong Kong or somewhere. And, you're 15 hours ahead when you get over there, or behind, I forget which. But you're basically completely opposite your normal sleep schedule. And it takes you a good 9 days to adjust. So when you're going there for 2 weeks every month and coming home, you're just permanently jet lagged. But the work I just absolutely fell in love with. We started working with a Christian minister who'd had an amazing vision from God when he fell asleep on a plane. He saw God pointing at a town in the deep south of Thailand along the Malaysia border, and he could see the name of the town. And when he woke up, he went to his wife, and they opened up a map of Thailand. They'd been working in Thailand. They're Finnish by way of Australia. They're blonder than I am, but they'd been working in Thailand doing ministry work for a while, maybe a decade or two at that point. And they opened up this map, and there was the name of the town the way he had seen it in this vision or dream he had had, just like that on the map. And he looked at his wife and he said, "Let's go." So they drove to the deep south of Thailand, and the first thing they saw after they got into this town of 140 child brothels that's on the border there with Malaysia was a bunch of girls being offloaded off the back of a truck from Laos. 90% of the girls we work with in the Thai brothels are from the country of Laos or Laos. In their village finery, their nicest dresses, and they were being herded into one of the child brothels. And he looked at his wife and he said, we need to do work in this town. So I had made his acquaintance around the same time. And together, our organization and his started doing a lot of work in that town of 140 child brothels, which is an overwhelming amount of work and darkness to confront on a good day. But in addition to the fact that it was a brothel town, it had the unfortunate reality of being situated directly on the river that separated the two countries, Malaysia from Thailand. And if you went across the river, which was literally just, you could throw a rock almost across the river, it was the Malay side, and there were radicalized Islamic jihadi terror training camps that were set up all along that side. And they would just bomb the brothels to keep their skills up. So the first year I worked there in 2013, 2014, we had 330 bombs go off in that town.
Wow.
It was absolutely, it's just, it's crazy enough to do the brothel work anywhere, but to be doing it with your back against the wall of jihadi training terror camps that are bombing you from behind you is extra exciting. But, nothing like jumping in at the deep end, right? So.
Right. Exactly. I mean, that's basically how we got baptized by fire. I mean, you're like, okay, here we go. And, the more I dived into it, I didn't even know a story. I mean, one of the paintings behind me was of my aunt, and through World War II and after World War II, or through World War II, she was what, probably know what comfort women are.
Mm-hmm.
Where they were taken, over 200,000 women were taken to be sex slaves of the Japanese military, everyone. And they were, like you said, raped by men that were way, way older, military, and they were raped 4 or 5 or more times a day, 20 times a day. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I didn't know her story until she just had realized, passed away about, I guess, a decade ago. But this has been just going on. I mean, I think it's a little bit more out in the open, per se.
Yeah.
In some of these foreign countries than, we see here in the States. But the connection between the world and doing this is unbelievable. And this is one of the things that your book's bringing highlight to, is the fact that this is not only from Asia, but this is connected to the United States as well, right?
Yeah, it is human trafficking, as your viewers likely know, but just quick recap. Fastest growing crime in the world, second largest criminal economy in the world right now, set to take over drugs to be the top criminal economy inside the next few years. And the reason for that is really simple. There's a hell of a lot more profit in selling a child sex slave to a John or a buyer than there is in selling cocaine to an addict. And if I break down the math for you, I mean, if you think about it like this, if I sell you cocaine tonight, hypothetically, last thing I need is another LA Times hit piece saying, in addition to all these other fake things, she's a fake drug dealer. But hypothetically, if you sell a guy some cocaine and he likes it and he comes back the next night to buy more cocaine, you have had as his dealer to take X percent of whatever money he gave you last night, go to your supplier in the meantime, and replenish your load of coke so you can sell more the next night. And that eats into your overall profit margin. If you are grossing $100 off a guy, you're having to spend 30 of that or whatever it is to go buy more product, and you're only actually realizing 60 or $70. It is a massively different scenario with child sex slavery. If I sell you a 7-year-old tonight and you like it, and as a pedophile, you come back the next night and you want more girl, in the intervening 24 hours, I have not had to go buy more girl to sell more girl.
Right.
I am just renting her over and over and over again until she dies. And my only hard cost is the cup of rice or the Happy Meal if you're in America a day that it takes. And maybe if you're in America, a Motel 6 hotel room to be your new red light district. But other than that, it's 90+% profit margin. And I am here to tell you, every small time gangbanger from Compton and Watts out where I live in LA, all the way to the biggest mafias, the Yakuza Japanese mafias coming out of Japan and Asia. They're businessmen and they're smart. They're as smart as some of the lawyers I've hung with for the last 30 years. And anybody who can do basic math is going to move from selling drugs and weapons, which doesn't have that kind of profit margin because you have to resupply every night,
Right.
into renting girls because the profits are just obscenely wonderful for the guy who's doing it. And it has created an absolute explosion, not just in Asia, but here as well. And there's a renaissance area, which sounds horrific, and it is horrific to talk about, but we're seeing a renewed amount of human trafficking or sex slavery over olden times, which, I mean, has no place in the modern world. We should have done away with that a long, long time ago. The life expectancy from the time a girl is first turned out in our country, here in America, is 7 years, according to the FBI. And the average age she's turned out is 12.
Right.
Do some simple math, 12 and 7. These kids are dead or dying by the time they can vote. And where I work in Asia, their average age is probably 10 years younger. We rescue girls out of brothels. You're not vocationally rehabbing them and getting them into a halfway house or a rehab house, teaching them how to be a maid or a waitress or an accountant, and then sending them off because they're 16, 17, 18 and they can do that. These kids are 7. They need a foster family. They need a childhood that they've missed out on. You need to raise these poor individuals that have already gone through hell on earth to become productive humans, but you can't send them back in Asia to their family because they'll just sell them again.
Right.
And by the way, and I know I'm going on long here, but before we rush to judgment on demonizing the parents in Asia who sell their own children to the brothels, which it's tempting to do, you must recognize one of the most harrowing moments I had is we were shooting a documentary in the fall of 2013, literally almost 10 years ago to the day. And we were interviewing the only girl who had bravely offered to be interviewed by us. And she came into the brothel room. There's no hotels in the town I work in. When you go to this town, you're staying in a brothel. So we'd secured a room. We'd put her in the corner with shadows on her face like they do in 20/20, 60 Minutes. And she walked very gingerly over to her chair and she sat down and very primly clasped her hands on her lap. She was wearing a peach organza sort of chiffon party dress, like a cotillion dress like you and I would have worn back in the day. And she just sat there quietly. And we asked her, one of the questions we asked is, did you know when you got here to the brothel what you would be doing? And I'll never forget her answer. She looked dead into the camera and she said, I knew exactly what I'd be doing, but I'm not unhappy. And my British colleague leaned over he's from London, and he goes, there must be something wrong with that translation. Nobody is happy to be in a brothel. Ask it again. And we did. And for the second time in as many minutes, she said, I knew exactly what I'd be doing when I got here. I'm not unhappy because my 7 brothers and sisters have food on the table, as does my mother, and they're in school, and nobody is starving to death.
That's right.
If you had asked me before that, do you think it's evil or wrong to sell your child to a brothel? You and me and the rest of America, God bless our being born where we were or living here today, would have had but one answer. Of course it's wrong. But is it any more or less wrong to not sell your eldest daughter to a brothel so that all of them can starve, all 7 or 8 of your kids? There is no good answer to that equation. You want to solve that equation, you need to solve the poverty problem that is driving these people into selling their children, because the only other option is to watch them starve to death that year, and they figure it's the lesser of 2 evils.
Right. I mean, in South Africa, I don't think people even understand that. I've been there, and there is no system. There's no orphanages. There's no prisons. There's no birth control. There's no anything. So this is happening over and over and over again with my own children. And it's different here in the States. You know, we have laws to protect them and avenues to fight for them. And I do hold the parents a lot more accountable here because they had a choice. And when I tell everybody that my kids are drug babies, they would sell their drugs, and for payment, they would rape the kids. Yeah. And, you know, that's a whole different story. And, we're here in the United States, but in other countries, they don't even have the systems to even fight for that justice, let alone another avenue to save these kids.
You hit the nail on the head. In Thailand, when we were first there, we were interfacing. It was really interesting. I was tapped to be the liaison point between what was going on in Asia and reports we were filing with all the triple letter agencies here. One of whom is FBI, and they have a person posted to Southeast Asia, and they will bust. You'll be happy to know, this is one of the good things to talk about today. They will bust Johns, sex buyers who leave their dental practice in Chicago and go to Thailand or Cambodia to rape a kid. And I was having lunch with the guy. Ironically, he was home and I was home. We were both working in Southeast Asia, but we met in a deli in Long Beach. And I said, I was new to the world. And I said, well, where do you prosecute these guys when you pick them up? And he said, it depends. He said, we will sometimes prosecute them here in the States, but if we know we can get a conviction in Cambodia and they're going to serve a similar amount of time, we will just help the Cambodians prosecute our American doctor for child rape in Cambodia, because it is a hell of a lot tougher sentence to be stuck in a Cambodian prison for 30 years with rats that are this big and no working toilets than to be in Club Fed here, where, it's basically a country club with 3 square meals and air conditioning. So, but it was fascinating. But the rate at which you see this trafficking and the overt level that it's at in these other places is horrendous. And some of their laws are just absolutely asinine. In Thailand, when I started doing this work, I had this glorious conversation where I was like, yeah, let's prosecute them in Cambodia. That sounds like what they deserve. They gave hell on earth to this child, let him rot in a hell on earth in Cambodian prison for the rest of their lives. But then I dove into the laws, and in Thailand, if the pedophile marries the underage girl that he raped before trial, it absolves him of any crime. So these pedophiles will get busted by the Thai authorities, and they'll go and they'll offer a lot of money to the girl's family, who already sold her once. So what are the odds that they're going to say no to the money a second time when it's serious money this time? Maybe they sold her for 300 cash US, and Mr. Rich guy comes along and offers them 10 grand to look the other way and force their daughter to marry him so that he can absolve himself of the crime of child rape. Well, we can all understand how that equation is going to work out. And at least in America, we do have very, very good laws. And I was privileged to be on a congressional committee for the better part of the last 10 years that was created by Congressman Ed Royce. He was the head of the House Foreign Affairs Committee at the time. And he said, you know what, this is a horrible problem. And we need to stiffen penalties everywhere, but starting in our own backyard here in America. And that's what we did.
Right, because so many are coming through our country, or lost from our country, but definitely funneled through our country. And it's an alarming rate of how many are funneled through here. And it's like a menu, everyone, where, like she just said, especially if it's a virgin young girl, and if you can get right off it could be 10 grand.
Yeah.
Or more. It's just horrendous. And how they get moved. And we saw that for Sound of Freedom. My daughter called that a G-rated version, but I told her, I said, if it was the rated R version, honey, nobody would watch it.
Nobody would be watching it. Exactly.
Right. Yeah. But at least is bringing awareness of how much is actually being shuttled through the world, and let alone our own country. Yeah. It's so important. So I'm so glad that you continue to fight this. You continue to be involved with our government and bringing your voice to this, because it's something that I'm thankful that you don't let them forget.
No,
you keep going.
It's one of the worst crimes that you can think of. If the stats are that somewhere between 1 in 3 and 1 in 5 women have been raped or sexually assaulted here in America before the age of 18. 1 in 5 men. Odds are, you get a group of 100 people viewing a podcast like this, or 1,000 people. Well, 30%, 50% sometimes understand what we're talking about at a very primitive and primal level. But even those who just were ignored as a child, which happens to almost every child, regardless of how good the parents are, you're going to, as a kid, encounter some adult who says, oh, honey, you don't know what you're talking about, and your opinion means nothing. That sense of impotent rage is what I like to call it. That sense of, how dare you? I am worth something, and how dare you discount me or not value me or hurt me or tell me that I am worthless or imply that even. that sense that we've all probably, courtesy of living on planet Earth, been exposed to in varying degrees at one point or another, it's wrong. And it's a horrible feeling. And no child should have to live with that feeling to even a minor degree for even a second. But these children who are being raped 5, 10, 15, 20 times a night in some of these brothels, or, after a football game in February, wherever the NFL game, the Super Bowl is played. I mean, it is just horrifying. This is a sentence that knows no end. They can't leave. They can't get out. Their pimp knows where they are. Every time they begin to make friends and understand the layout of the town that they maybe are in, that they never even see the light of day on, these pimps have moved them down the freeway to another town, so they can't make friends with recurrent customers. And they go to breaking houses. When we were doing the work in Europe, my anti-trafficking organization that I was working as general counsel for was rescuing a lot of girls, and they would tell stories. They would say, I thought I was going to be a waitress. I'm a poor woman, poor girl from Ukraine, Roma Gypsy territory, somewhere in Eastern Europe where they're very poor. And these recruiters come to town and they promise them, the moon and the stars. Oh, you'll be a wonderful waitress at a high-end restaurant in Greece. You'll be making money hand over fist in tips. You can send it all home to your parents. And they woo the parents and they woo the girls. And they go, okay, great. Like, I want to help my family. And on their way to Greece, of course, they're drugged and their paperwork's taken and their passport. And they wake up in what is known as a breaking house, where they are just raped 24/7 until they have lost the will to fight and they have fallen down the scale of human existence so far that they're just in straight apathy and almost a catatonic walking dead. And if they're not fully trustworthy, one of the final things that the pimps will pull out is they'll send in a policeman or a nice, sympathetic looking John to be the buyer, where the girl thinks, maybe this guy, maybe if I tell a sad story to him, he'll help me leave here. He's a cop. He's a politician. He's a family man. He looks sympathetic. And she'll pour her guts out to this cop. Please, please rescue me. And the cop, of course, is a Confederate of the brothel owner, tells the guy what's happened, and she gets beaten even worse than she's ever been beaten before, until she truly and duly learns the lesson that she can trust no one and nobody. And that is how the learned helplessness of these victims comes into play. And it is a very hard road, as you probably know from also doing this work, to take these victims out of this mindset of learned helplessness and teach them that they are valuable, that they are worth something, that they have a right to their opinions, and that they actually have the ability, now that they're free of these pimps and brothel owners, to stand up and leave if they don't like what's going on anywhere, whether it's a church, a PTA meeting, a McDonald's, they can leave. They have the right to do that because they've been so brainwashed into thinking they can't ever leave a bad situation.
That's right. And it's, here we have it labeled, I guess around the world, with reactive attachment disorder. And that really is hard to fight, because that trust, to rebuild that trust and have that trust connection for their future and their future spouses or friends, it's destroyed. Destroyed everyone.
It's destroyed. When the people who are supposed to be your protectors are your perpetrators, when the abuse is perpetrated, when you're sold by your family, or you were sexually abused by your family, or the pimp calls himself daddy and is acting as a trusted family member while he's selling you, you really, really start to lose hope. And you're right, it is a lifelong struggle for many of these girls to learn to have normal social relationships that are not abusive, particularly with members of the opposite sex who were so often perpetrating against them.
Right. Exactly. I know your time is limited, and I don't want to interfere with your day, but please tell us about your book in these last few minutes. And I have definitely posted the links in not only our description, but underneath in our permanent chats where they can find it. But tell us about your book, please.
Yeah, it goes over a lot of the issues we've been touching on. I didn't want it to be overly dark, so I do weave in some chapters from my earlier life. Funny things that happened to me, like when the Whittier earthquake hit and I happened to be naked and ran outside my house. And normally that wouldn't have been a problem. I was in a kind of rural area, but we had Uh, we my parents had contracted a new pipe corral fencing company to put up new fences around the barn. So that was fun. And I try to tell some of these anecdotes tongue in cheek. And I worked at large law firms for many years, and there were some interesting experiences where, again, you got to learn to stand up for yourself. It's a totally different wheelhouse than being in a brothel, but you're in a good old boys club, and they think you're the legal secretary, and they treat you accordingly if you don't actually make it abundantly clear that you're there to do legal work and you're a lawyer and you're as capable as they are. So there's a little bit of my early life melded in, I should say, just to keep it, to keep the mascara from running all the way off your chin.
Right.
Don't want people crying in their soup too much. And then I do a lot of discussion, particularly in the later chapters, about the human trafficking issue. It's part of our political problems in every country. The only thing that people care about now is if a politician is caught having sex with a kid. It used to be you could blackmail a politician in the 50s by saying you were going to sell his secrets and show pictures of him cheating on his spouse or his taxes, but that really doesn't it doesn't cut it anymore unless you have a Hunter Biden laptop, unless you have a guy who's actually having sex with children.
Right.
You don't have anything to blackmail them with. So a lot of the politicians we see, when you sit there and go, why are they not doing the right thing? Why are they not speaking out? Why are they a member of my party and not doing what they're called to do? Well, a lot of times it's because behind closed doors, somebody's holding a gun to their head and saying, you're going to do what I want. And you're going to turn a blind eye to this topic, because if not, I'm going to make your dirty little secrets known. So we really need to get that handled. And it's one of the reasons that I spoke a lot about the human trafficking issues in my book. I talk a lot about the brothel work. I actually go so far as to, there's a full color glossy section in the middle of the book that shows actual pictures from the brothel work.
Go ahead.
It doesn't show it doesn't really show any of the girls per se, but it shows some of the brothels. It shows in this photo, let me see if I can get it. In this photo on the bottom, you can actually see the pallets on the floor and the teddy bears lining their room. So when you were reading the back jacket of the book, where I had sent an email to my colleagues that night saying I was literally looking at this child brothel room where the only witnesses to these crimes were the teddy bears lining the walls, that was the picture that I was referring to. So from my perspective, there's a lot of human trafficking books out there, but few are really written from this angle. Few actually show you what it's like to be there. And also, I didn't want it to just be an awareness raising thing. I really wanted people to be able to take the lessons I had learned from various parts of my life, be it in the brothel work or my earlier years, and go, wow, I'm going to try that on for size. I think I could take that takeaway from her story, whatever type of story it was, and apply that in my own universe to stand up for my kid with the PTA and get his disability recognized, to, tell the school district that what they're doing across the board is not okay. We don't want to have people doing porn shows at, 3-year-old story hours or whatever it may be that you're fighting. The ticket really is, and I'll end with this. Margaret Mead said it best when she said, never doubt that a small group of concerned citizens can change the world, for indeed they are the only ones who ever have. We all have the power to change this planet for the better, in bigger and littler ways. And it starts with the power of one. And every little thing you do cumulatively adds up like a ripple to a tsunami of justice. And there's so many injustices to confront. It doesn't have to be human trafficking. It can be as simple as standing up to your husband or a bully at work. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. And I'm also a fan of MLK Jr. saying, Martin Luther King Jr. said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are the heroes that we have been waiting for. Like you, 3 years ago at the beginning of this, I was waiting for Bobby Kennedy or Donald Trump or some savior, some reincarnated Martin Luther King to ride to the rescue, until I suddenly realized that this thing we're going through is too massive, whether it's human trafficking or just the general state of the planet. And we all have the opportunity to be a hero. And honestly, friends, that is a unique and wonderful gift. I think God put us here at this place, at this unique time, because we all have something we can bring to these battles. And that is what I wanted to leave my reader with. The lessons I had learned the things that I had taken away from the challenges I had faced, and what we could do marching forward to right this ship. And if I'm able to even reach one reader and give them one useful tool, it's a win. My hope is, considering my 18-year-old daughter actually said she enjoyed the first couple chapters, and that I had her laughing hysterically, that it was like an Irma Bombeck book, which, kids, they don't give you praise ever.
Right.
So
Especially
she said,
teens.
yeah, especially an 18-year-old. She said the manicurist had to tell her to stop reading it because she was giggling so hard it was shaking her fingernails. So I'd like to think I bring the reader to tears and joy. That's certainly what General Flynn and a number of other well-known best-selling authors said when they endorsed the book. And if you're remotely interested, I encourage you to buy it. The name of it, again, is Just Stand Up, My Fight for Freedom from the Brothels of Asia to the Streets of America. You can find that book on my website, which is my name, leighdundas.com. LEIGHDUNDAS.com. It's also on my nonprofit website, which is freedomfighternation.org. And that's where you can find some of the initiatives that I've backed, both in the human trafficking world and here in the more recent history with civil liberties violations that have gone on a lot recently, and what you can do to be active and get resources together to help fight this fight.
I love it. Thank you so much, because and I tell people, you got to choose your battle, because I remember thinking of the world and there's a lot of things going wrong, but you kind of choose your hill and fight like hell.
Exactly.
And it can be done. And I name this thing Saving Our Children One at a Time, because you can affect one child's life or one person's life in just your efforts of what you're doing. And I am so honored that you came on our show and that you're a fighter for our youth. It means everything to me, because a mother who lived and adopted 3 who lived through this nightmare and still live through this nightmare, it's very hard.
It is.
And I'm
Your name. Tell
it.
me again the name of that you just mentioned of the show, or the whole name, the Saving Freedom One.
This show here is Saving Our Children One at a Time.
It makes me think. Have you ever told your readers of the little parable about the kid throwing starfishes one at a time back into the ocean, and some guy walks up to him and goes, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "I'm saving starfishes." And he looks at him and he goes, "But there's millions here. You're never going to make a difference." And he goes, "Yeah, well, it made a difference to that one."
That's right. And it means
you can be the difference to one person, and one is enough. You save them one at a time, and if we all do that, the good people outnumber the bad on this planet. And that's what folks don't understand. When things seem hopeless, good people always rise up, and we are always in the majority. It takes us a while sometimes to understand the threat, to get our arms around it, to get off our couch, to mobilize, to find other warriors in the fight. But eventually we see it time and again. We saw it in Rwanda. We saw it with the Cambodian genocide. We saw it in the Holocaust. And I do believe we're going to see it again in our time, in our season, that good people will triumph. And every time that happens, we end up in a new renaissance where we become collectively as a planet more free, more capable, more discerning, and really just resonating at a more humanitarian level. And that's our goal. That's why we're put here on this planet. We're not put here to be potted plants. We're put here to grow and learn and make a difference. And start with start with what's in front of you. I love your, find your hill and fight like hell, because that's what it is all about. And together there's so many people joining the fight that it's becoming a tsunami of good. And I'm privileged to be awake and alive during this time, because I relish seeing people fight for the good people.
Yes, I agree with you. Tell everybody again where to find you and your website.
Yeah, it's leighdundas.com. I don't know if I can back it up.
No, it's right here listed underneath your name.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Leighdundas.com.
And it's in my descriptions below.
Yep.
And we want to follow you. We want to, help you. And I really encourage everybody to go to read that book, because, again, if you put out a rated R version of that, people would not read it. So it's nice that it has both sides to that. And we need to, like I said, we need to pick our hill and fight like hell. Our youth need us. They need us.
And consider it your good deed. Even if you're remotely interested, it's not a make-break point. It's less than probably going to dinner for even one person these days, at least in California. And it's a beautiful thing, because a lot of us, I know you're probably in the same boat, all the people who are doing good work, we don't have sugar daddies who are just dropping money into our bank so we can do this work. And it was a struggle before, but my husband and I had a business. But, the pandemic killed it. And for 3.5 years, since March 20th of 2020, I've had no income at all. And thank God we had some money in the bank. But when you're buying the book, you're not only you're paying it forward and learning how to fight, learning about human trafficking, learning how to become part of the fight. You're also funding the freedom fighters who are doing it. I'm actually taking the money that I get back and using it to go do my work in Thailand and to keep myself afloat. And so personally, if you're on the fence, just know that you can consider that your donation to freedom, and I will put that money to go to work because that's all I'm about. So yeah, it's a good thing when you're able to
Yes, it
to pay
is.
it forward by buying
Yes, it
pieces.
is. Oh, it's been a true honor, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you again. And thank you. You're welcome back anytime you'd like to.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure. May we go forth into this weekend and the rest of our August and do good work. I know you will. I know your viewers will. I know I will. And I can't wait to come back on again in sometime in a month or two.
Okay, I would love it. All right. Have a
Sounds
great
good,
weekend yourself. Be
Thank
blessed.
you.
Thank you, Leigh.
Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. Guess what? We have another amazing guest as well. So I'm going to go ahead and read this because it's just phenomenal. I mean, I'm just really honored to have this amazing man here as well. And he is very concerned with what's killing healthy young Americans. In 2020, we saw a spike in deaths in America, smaller than you might imagine during a pandemic, some of which could be attributed to COVID and to the initial treatment strategies that were not effective. But then in 2021, the stats people expected were off the rails. The CEO of the One America Insurance Company publicly disclosed that during the third and fourth quarters of 2021, deaths in people of working age 18 to 64 were 40% higher than it was before in the pandemic. Significantly, the majority of the deaths were not attributed to COVID. At 40% increase in deaths is literally earth-shaking. Even at 10% increase, the excess deaths would have been a 1 in a 200-year event. But this was 40%. And therein lies a story that starts with the obvious question: what has caused this historic spike in the death among younger people? And the other question is what has caused the shift from old people who are expected to die and younger people who are expected to keep living? Everyone, please welcome my next guest, Ed Dowd.
Hi,
Welcome.
so good to be here. Thank you for having me on.
It's my pleasure. First of all, thank you for coming back to our network. My producer Scott says that you are great friends, and it's such an honor to have you back. And it's a privilege. But I know you've been fighting this for a few years now, and I'm really actually grateful. But if you want to tell people slightly of your journey, I know your time is limited, but I would love to hear slightly about your journey, and then your new book would be phenomenal. I'll show that when you're ready.
Yeah, so look, I'm a Wall Street professional, and I've experienced many different types of fraud in my career. And there's a fraud going on right now. And the fraud, the evidence is at this point overwhelming. The vaccine is the culprit, in my humble opinion. And if it's not, then what is it, and why is no one talking about it? And the bottom line is this: starting in 2021 with the rollout of the vaccine, the health, it became detrimental to your health to be employed. The numbers suggest that. They're undeniable. Two data sets that are not even mine. We've done our own analysis, which is on our website, financetechnologies.com, spelled with PH. But let's just use this Society of Actuaries, group life policy holders at the elite corporations of the country, Fortune 500 mid-size. They experienced 40% excess death in 21, 40%. And the general U.S. population experienced 32%. That's never happened before. The general U.S. population, compared to this group, this elite group dies at 1/3 the mortality rate of the general U.S. population in a given year. It's flipped on its head. Separate database confirmed the same thing. U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that we added 3.2 million people in 18 months into a high of September of 2022 disabled. And of those 3.2 million, more than half were employed. And just to give you an idea why that's such a big deal, it was running around 29 to 30 million for the prior 5 years and then spiked up. And more than half were employed. In fact, the employed disability rate went up 36% in that time frame between February of 21 and November of 22, 36%. The general U.S. population went up 9%. And a category called not in labor force, these are the folks in between jobs who are willing to work and could work, their disability went up 4%. Obviously, those are the people who either get fired for not taking the job or those who quit and refuse the job. So it's literally been detrimental to your health to be employed in 21 and 22 and continues in 23. The data continues to roll out. It's getting worse. Disabilities in the U.S. went up in May and June, another million. The good news was it was going sideways from the high in September 22, but now we're adding a new leg of growth to this category, and it went up in 2 months, 1 million. So we're at 34.2 million disabled Americans, another total 4.2. So this is affecting all sorts of things. If you go to the hospital now, you'll notice that it takes forever to be seen in an emergency room. It takes forever to get a CAT scan read. The shortages are beginning. This is affecting the labor pool. It's screwing up the employment numbers. So the Federal Reserve is looking at the wrong number because the labor pool has shrunk because people are out of work because of disabilities, and there are help wanted signs everywhere. So this is we've estimated it's affected 30 million people in the U.S., mostly employed. That would be 30% of the workforce if it was all employed. This is a national security issue. I said that to Senator Ron Johnson in December. I feel like I'm screaming into the echo chamber. But the good news is it seems like the word is spreading. My book, Cause Unknown: The Epidemic of Sudden Death in 21 to 22, is selling. It's going word of mouth. And what I find is someone buys it, then hands it to their loved one, because I have the ability to kind of just really don't go into the who and the why. I just say, this just is. I think it's the vaccine. If you disagree with me, great. But why is no one talking about it? And I'll tell you why. It's a cover up and a crime at this point.
Right. I mean, and we see, there's not a person I don't know that hasn't some family member that just died suddenly. I mean, I've been affected in my own family, or we see this with friends. I mean, it's like, what in the world's going on? Or we see this on the news every day, especially with our young ones going, these prime athletes just dropping left and right. And it's like, this is absolutely a crime against the humanity. And the fact that, this is the problem. And I absolutely agree with you. I'm going to share your book. If you want to tell everybody a little bit about it here, we're going to just load this up right here. You can get this on Amazon unless you have another outlet for us. But this is your book, Cause Unknown. Please tell us about your book.
So the book was, I did not look to write a book. The book was pitched to me by Bobby Kennedy and Gavin DeBecker and Tony Lyons of Skyhorse Publishing, because I had a Wall Street hard numbers data analysis, and they thought that story needed to be told because a lot of people there were a lot of doctors screaming into the wind, and they were maligned and de-licensed. I don't have a license to take. I come at it from a numbers trend analysis. This is what I did for my job. My job was to get ahead of all my peers, and this, we call it the street, get ahead of the street, be first, be loud, and be right. So this is what I did for my job. Not only when I wrote the book did I think I was right, as time has rolled on, the evidence continues to mount. And this book marries two things. It marries individual stories of sudden athletic deaths, sudden deaths of teenagers in their sleep, celebrities, and it gives you the human face. And all we do is we just use fair use, just report the local news item in the internet as is. We don't make commentary. And then I marry it with what we call metadata, the big statistics. And it really puts a human face on this, that this isn't just numbers in a spreadsheet. And to give you an idea of what athletic deaths were like before COVID, there was a study done in 2006. It's in my book. I talk about the Lucene study. There were 1,101 sudden athletic deaths under the age of 35 on the field or on the way to the hospital. That over a 38-year period is 29 a year. So that's globally, that did happen, but it was very rare. And now we'd be lucky since 2021 to have a month with just 29.
Right.
Just, we're at a 10-20-fold increase in frequency. So did it occur before? Yes, but it was very rare. Is it becoming a common phenomenon? Yes. And no one seems to want to ask the question why, and it's not global warming or COVID.
Right. Right. Exactly. And I know that you are a fighter. I know that you go to Congress all the time. I know that you're out there in the public. I see you all over the place fighting this thing, and I know you're not alone, but we need to put a face to this as much as possible, because this is the problem. And this is not normal. And we're losing a mass amount of people, and it's not highlighted like it should be. And that is the biggest problem, because you'll see a story here, or you might, well, the media, they're not going to cover this stuff, like they should be. But this is the real problem of the pandemic, is we
Yeah,
are losing our people, and especially our young ones. They're dropping so fast. It's alarming. Absolutely
absolutely.
alarming.
Absolutely. And look, I want to make something clear. When I first came out with this data, I was fact checked by AP and Reuters, and they said our experts say it's a lie. That's not happening. Now they can't hide that. So now they're switched to it is happening, but it's because you exercise too much. Oh, your immune system is too good as a young person, so it reacts differently to COVID than old people. Oh, it's eggs. Oh, it's climate warming. Oh, it's whatever. It's all
Right.
nonsense. They're at
Right.
least admitting that it's actually happening, but it's anything but the vaccine is talked about.
Exactly. And when we're talking about something was experimental, I mean, my husband's a nurse, and he still sits there and says those inserts still are blank. I mean, he has problems, and his doctor had problems. He's like, how do I even help my own patients if I don't even know what's in it to counteract any of the effects, because everything's blank? And he was so frustrated, he ended up leaving the practice and starting his own, because he's like, I'm sorry, I cannot be a proper doctor to my own patients if I don't even know what in the world, and watching them die and I can't counteract it, or watching them fall ill and I can't counteract that. And that's even a problem for our medical community, if they have no way to fight against these things as well. So
It's tragic.
Yes, it is. It's absolutely tragic. And I am really hoping everybody goes out and gets this. I've definitely posted the links to find your book. It's Amazon. So I've given, if you have another outlet that you'd like to share that helps.
Skyhorsepublishing.com. That's Tony Lyon's website.
Nice. Beautiful. I will make sure that I put that in our description links in our permanent post before, because, I mean, Amazon makes enough money. I'd rather help somebody, local, and make sure that you guys are getting this to continue your efforts. And this is a fight that's not going to go away. We're seeing it get worse and worse. And it's tragic. It's absolutely tragic. If you want to share with everybody where they can find you and they can follow you and help support you, that would be lovely.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at Dowd Edward, D-O-W-D Edward, on Getter at Edward Dowd. And if you want to see our most up-to-date research on this issue, it's at financetechnologies.com, spelled with a PH, under the Humanity Project. We have all the receipts, all the evidence. Beautiful. The good news is word is spreading. When we started our website at the end of last year, we had de minimis amounts of views. We hit 1 million views recently. In the month of July, 330,000 of those million views hit. So word is spreading.
Yes.
I'm being asked by some state senators to do some work, maybe testify. I'm not going to name the state because I don't want to get them in trouble, but I'm going to go to a state in November and testify. People are waking up.
Yes.
The word needs to get out, because if people are aware that they may have been poisoned, there are ways to treat that. But your doctor, who doesn't know anything, is going to tell you, well, you have this, and we're going to give you X, Y, Z for that, rather than the underlying problem.
That's right. And that's because it's the protocol they're being given. Having my husband in the medical field, like you said, the doctors that he had worked for, if they don't know what they're fighting, they don't know how to help, and they just have to follow the protocol. And that's exactly where they want them. They don't want them to know how to fight these things off, and it's horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. So I look forward to making, helping. I can even reach out to my own Congress and Senate and be like, oh, we got to get this more, and I do. I'm very, very active. So, but I will call them again and be like, this continues. You need to continue sharing that voice, being active in this cause. And I love that you call it cause unknown, because, I mean, it's died suddenly, everyone. My own mother, this was affected. I'm going to cry. My own mother died suddenly. And it's horrifying, and we know family members, we have friends that have gone through this. And I'm so thankful that you continue to fight for this, because this is just not right. Nothing about this is right.
It's the greatest crime I've ever seen in my life. And we'll be talking about this for 100 years. And
Yes.
Unfortunately, the economies of the world and our way of living is going to change permanently, because we're going to have to take care of the sick and the dying unless we stop this immediately.
That's right. That's right. And I also know, before you leave, are you not a resident of Maui as well?
Yeah, I am. I'm dealing with what seems to be epic local government failure on all fronts and a cover-up.
And my producer, I know you know Scott, and he has been on the phone with me and emailing me and texting me as much updates as we have. I know the news is not even covering even the amount of deaths that you guys are seeing. He shared links with us to help. If you have any avenues or you want to say anything about that right now, please feel free, because we are praying for you. I know tons of people that I've asked personally that we are praying for you every day. We are reaching out, we're donating, we're trying to do anything we can to help the people of Maui. But I know the news is not getting out there with of course, the news. It's not getting out there with the proper information or correct information. So if you have anything to say or you want to share about that?
Yeah, so I've heard with good authority from a lot of first responders that it's going to be 500 to over 1,000 likely dead, a lot of which are going to be children because school was canceled, and a lot of the children were left at home because both parents work. So this is tragic. They're trying to cover it up and slow roll it. That's what they're going to do. Try to drop this news, many months from now. They're only counting. We have over 1,400 missing. So and the list isn't getting smaller. So we know something has gone horribly wrong. I did put on my Twitter and Getter account a Google Doc that had 600 individuals and or families affected by the fire. You can go to and give money directly to them. It's in my Twitter feed if you scroll back a few days, and that list was pretty well vetted, and I trust it. So when you pop up, you give the name of the person, what happened, and a brief description of what happened to them. So you can pick and choose who you want to give money to directly without the Red Cross. It's going to take 85% of the money and piss it down the drain.
Right. And I will, not only do I have a Twitter, but I will make sure that I also share that on Truth and the other outlets I'm on as well, because this needs to go viral and how we can help and the truth of what is actually happening there. This is an absolute tragedy. And I personally, like I said, my whole Liberty Rise family's there. And my heart really goes out to you. I'm so glad that you're safe, but this is horrifying. And we are praying for you very, very, daily.
Thank you. And listen, I appreciate you, and I love Scott, and I'm glad that you know him. And I will say this, in addition to the wind was real, and there was a lack of water released apparently, and it looks like there were some down power lines, but there's a lot of explaining that needs to happen. The story here is not out fully. And unfortunately, another part of the story that I don't think is getting a lot of fanfare is arson is involved in some of the other fires on the island. We have an arson problem. Right. I've now heard of people witnessing people in the fields north of Kihei lighting fires. So this is something's going on, and it's not kosher.
Right. When Scott came on my show last Sunday to talk, and when he told me about the children and them being trapped in the house and being sent home, I was in tears in the matter of, because this is not a story that's even being told either, of the loss of children that were sent home that day and alone. And I mean, like I said, I was in absolute tears, and, it's disgusting that our news is not covering this. But I thank heavens for people like you that are bringing truth to this. And not only this, but, and with the pandemic, with the COVID vaccines, I'm just so proud and honored for the work that you do. And it's mortifying what we're seeing in our lives these days. Right. And we just have to keep doing it.
I put out a Twitter poll the other day saying, do you feel like you're a character in a dystopian movie where you know what's going on, but everyone around you is clueless? And 98% responded yes, because my followers are obviously biased. But there seems to be this feeling we were literally in a dystopian movie. And I think that's correct. We're all characters and fighters for truth in a world where a lot of people don't know what's going on.
Right. I absolutely agree. But like I told my previous guest, you got to choose a battle. I know that there's so many issues going on right now, but there's something that you could do or something that you're passionate about. Don't get, don't try to fight everything at one thing, but pick one thing, pick your hill and fight like hell. and try to help as you can along the way with the other little, not little things, because it seems like everything's huge right now, but you can at least change something. You can do something. And I'm hoping that people go out, help them buy your book, read these articles, and share them out, because more people need to hear this stuff. They need to be awake. They need to know what they're fighting and seeing, and like I said, I'm so thankful for all the work that you're doing. And I do follow you, and I'll make sure I do my part to share them on these links, to share them out on my social medias as well. Again, everybody, I'm going to post this right here. This is the book. It's called Cause Unknown. Let's add that to the stream. And if you want to share that, if that's going to add that to there, let's try that again. If you want to share the website, I have this in my permanent chat below, but share the website that you would prefer from Tony.
Skyhorsepublishing.com. And if you are interested in another research at my firm, it's financetechnologies.com, spelled with a PH. But you can get the book on Amazon or skyhorsepublishing.com.
Beautiful. And I did include that in my description, Ed, so that people know how to reach out and find you in finance. And I'm thankful for all the work you do. Again, just so you know that we're completely praying for you and the people on the island of Maui. We're so sorry for your losses, and you have our hearts. And this is just despicable on so many fronts. But again, we got to pray, we got to fight, we got to stand up and help each other, and bring awareness is a huge key.
I agree. And, we're doing what we can, and everyone counts and everyone matters. Everyone takes action. Like you said, whatever battle and hill you want to fight on, pick a battle and go after it 100%. We know what truth is. We know what discernment is. We know what love is. And those who don't, right, they are going to, unfortunately, have bad times ahead, because the good people will rise. That's
right. That's right. Well, it's been an absolute honor. You are welcome back anytime. I mean, whether it's on Scott's or it's on mine, but keep us updated and let us know. And if you ever want another platform to have a voice, you're more than welcome to come back on. It's been my absolute pleasure. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here. We appreciate you very much.
Thank you so much for what you do and all the truth you spread. And I'll gladly come back on in a month or two.
Okay, thank you so much. You have a beautiful night, as much as possible. And we're going to continue praying for you, and we love you very much.
Thank
Just
you.
So you guys know.
Thank you. Right. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I told you it was going to be a jam-packed evening. I just wanted to check here. If everyone say hello. Thank you so much for coming on and joining me tonight, because these are just such important topics to talk about on so many different avenues. It seems like our world is just everywhere we turn. I always joke, I'm not really joking, but I always joke it's another day in paradise, but we wake up every day with something else, and it can be overwhelming. And so, start in your community, start with something that you are passionate about. Get to know your neighbors. You don't have to agree on everything, but we have common bonds, our family, our community, what in the world is happening to our youth. I am truly honored and blessed that I took this and was able, God inspired me and came to me and said, you've got to fight for our youth. You've lived it. Your children's lived it. And I want you to open a school, because it's going to get bad. And I don't know necessarily what that means. We saw it was really bad. I opened up my school in 2021. And we're seeing this. We're hearing rumors that this might circle around and start back up again. I'm like, oh my heavens. But even these kids that are going through these tragic experiences, or people who are getting bullied because of their beliefs or their conservative family values, or they might be Christian, I am so honored to have a school that can be a different platform. And I'm nationwide, and I put all the glory to God for doing that. With that being said, I know that there's so many families that could use this help, that could, just anything that you could do. I'm going to put this up here so everyone can see. I want to put that one too. This is from my producer, to help with Maui. again, if you guys, this is a church that he goes through and he's working with daily. I mean, I asked him to come back on tonight and he says, I'm really busy right now, boots on the ground. And I know that he is continuously fighting to help his, fellow citizens and communities at Maui. And this is his church that he says that 100% goes to the citizens and the victims of these fires. I also want to add this one here too, and these are also going to be in my links below. But I am fighting a battle here. Our youth are everything. And I am done. I'm so sick of what they are learning in these schools. I'm learning that they're not possible, as you saw from my first guest today. Doesn't matter what your disability is. Doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. Doesn't matter if you're black, white, Mexican, Hispanic, Asian. All youth are possible. And they hate me for saying that. I've been kicked off of so many platforms for just even saying that all youth are possible. But I will say it until the day I die. I've lived it. I've had 3 that have been through this nightmare of trafficking. And yet, again, I have disabled children, 2 are in college and one's about ready to graduate. I've been blessed with the ability to help your families. So if you have a way, even if you don't have kids, this is a great way to donate and bring a scholarship or help buy microscopes, something. It doesn't have to be a lot. This is a great way. We have 4 different ways that you can donate if you go here to help our youth. I am helping out with some of these children. I'm reaching out to these organizations that are helping these trafficked children, because putting them back into a regular school is a nightmare. People don't understand their tragedies. They don't understand that they don't trust. They need an outlet. They need therapy. And through art integration, they can find some healing. I learned that by raising my own children, that this is an avenue to tell their stories, when in a way that maybe they don't want the world to hear. Maybe they're going through a problem right now because their families have been imprisoned. I mean, J6er families, what are their kids going through? Maybe you're just done having your children be indoctrinated and told that they could change. Our youngest student and our newest grade is 2nd grade. I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again. They started giving her the queer gender or the gender queer book at 5. And by 1st grade, they wanted to give her all kinds of medication. They wanted to give her ADHD medication. They wanted to give her puberty blockers. And they didn't want the parents to give it. They mandated that not only does she go see a doctor for these things, but you must bring the medication to the school and they will give it to her. It horrified the mother. And she came to me and she said, please, I cannot have my baby in these schools anymore. And this is starting kindergarten. So I'm just going to cry. Our kids are being attacked from every angle. And if we don't find a way for them to have a positive future and be built up, I'm very terrified for them. They're being trafficked. They're being either aborted. They're being transgendered. They're being whatever. And this is time that we, if we don't fight and stand up, just like the book from Leah, right? Just stand up. We could absolutely use your help. And I'm going to tell you personally how thankful I am for you for helping us to fight for our youth. So if you could find it in your hearts to donate, we could really, really use the funds because we're growing. I need to hire teachers on. Parents are reaching out to us. And it's my honor and my pleasure to serve our nation. This is why God inspired me to build a nationwide school. I put it online and we're live because the moment I open a building or the moment I take a government grant is the moment I have to go buy those laws from those title programs that trap our schools. If you wonder why you can't get it out of your schools, it's because of these title programs, which are laws. And Biden just doubled down on the Title IX program, which secured this movement even more. But this is a problem. Until they can change those laws or remove those laws, it's in every school. I've had episodes where I've read you from each single title. I encourage you to go back and maybe I'll do another show that shows you again these title programs 1 through 9. And we know these title programs exist because Title 42 is on our border. And President Trump says he's going to use that to help fight human trafficking, which, thank heavens, I would love that movement. But if we want this out of our education, we have to focus on the problem, and it's not going to go away overnight. But guess what? Your kids are facing this, and they're facing this right now. And we have to stand up. You've got to be the voice. And I'll tell you another thing, parents out there. One of the last gems you might have is called FERPA, Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. And I hate to keep saying this on air because once they find out, they're probably going to manipulate that or ban that as well. But right now, your rights as a parent own that FERPA. And I've seen it manipulated, because when I called about this for my own daughter in school for college and her next step, I was like, well, I'll be able to see some things because she's still technically a minor. And said, no, you're not. They try to use it against me. I pulled that up in a heartbeat, and I totally read it to them. I said, it's nice that you pulled out a line, but this is a law. And let me read the whole law to you. And I fought for that right. So while you have it right now, know this, parents, you have the rights called Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. So choose your battle and fight like hell. And I want to share this with you because my students make our commercials. So if you don't know about Hamilton Liberty Academy, I encourage you to go find out. If I can be a help to you, to your community, to neighbors, please reach out. I'm all over the place. You guys know that. I will not stop fighting for our youth. It's the hill I've chose to fight on. But I want to introduce you because they are amazing youth that it's an honor to not only be their headmaster, but to literally teach them. And I'm grateful to help show them that they have a future, they have a possibility. And it's my job as an educator to give them the foundations for their future, whether it's going to college, whether it's trade school, or it's building their own business. We started with high school and we're moving our way down. Like I said, it's our first year for second grade, and it's going to be a kind of our trial run, but we knew we were going to be K through 12 eventually, and God is moving that timeline for us. And I'm honored to be the steward over this school and build this to help save our youth. And I appreciate all the help that you guys have given me and the support that you've given me, the prayers that you have given me as well. I mean, I can reach out to friends on my social media and say, I just need prayers today. And you guys are warriors. And I thank you so much for that, because you just stand up and say, I'm praying for you, Lady H. And I thank you so much for that. So before I play this commercial, I need to remind you to please hit those like buttons, follow. That's a great way to help getting this message out. And these beautiful guests, we're so thankful that they come on to help bring awareness, to bring these truths to you. And it helps, it really does when you like, follow, and share, because more people need to see these things. If they're not awake now, they need to know. And I appreciate that, because I know you're out there. I know you're doing it. I see you on the social medias doing it. And I really, really appreciate your help. But again, let me introduce you to Hamilton Liberty Academy. This young lady made this beautiful commercial. And so here you go. Okay, I need to take that banner off. Sorry about that. I totally had forgot to do that. All right, there we go. And just check it. Any comments? All right. Sometimes I forget to do that. I get so busy and I'm with the guests, and don't think I'm ignoring you guys. It's just me here. So I do like to spend a few minutes just seeing if anybody has anything. I so appreciate you guys being here with me today and taking your time to spend with me and hear what my wonderful guests have to say. So before we go, though, and I need to make sure I get that up for everybody. I think I closed that. Oh, I didn't mean to do that either. So let me go to, because I do something here on Friday nights. If you're following me on Truth Social, which I hope you are, I'm on 3 different things, at least me personally, but the ones I use all the time are Truth Social and Twitter. Truth Social is listed underneath my name. Lady Hamilton Art. Twitter wouldn't let me have that handle. It's Lady Hamilton AR1. So you can find me on both platforms. You can find my school on almost every platform. I make sure that they are there on every platform, so you can find them there. But I wanted to do something. I've had so many artists on, and I love to always share, that, because sometimes we just need to see something beautiful. And so I've started a group called the Artist Corner. And I told them that I would highlight the artist that got the most. Once you highlight that, once the most shares, the most likes, or every week I would share the artist of the week. And I always want to continue to do that and give a little shout out because, you know, they bring us these moments of joy, these moments of beautiful in a world of darkness. It is so beautiful to see, whether it's music or poetry or painting or drawing or sculpture. I really thank you. And I love the arts. You guys know I'm an art integrated school, so you know how much I love the arts. So I wanted to highlight that before we go. Let me add that to it. Everybody's going to think I'm on True Social now, which I guess I technically am, right? But the artist of the week, this is absolutely beautiful. They all are, but this is really beautiful. We're going to highlight H2O color artist. It says usually most of artwork doesn't look as good. This is what my co-founder, he definitely helps me with the art corner. He said this, and I love this. So we're going to say what Ray had to say. He says, usually most artwork doesn't look as good when you enlarge it. However, if you enlarge this piece, it only gets better and better. Doing a portrait that is lit through foliage, filtered light is no easy task, but this piece manages that brilliantly. So let's congratulate H2O color artist. This is an absolutely beautiful piece. And we are so thankful that you posted that into our group. And I am, again, if you are an artist out there, I would love it. Please go find Artist Corner. It's a way for me to not only share and highlight you, but then once a week, I like to highlight you on my show. And thank you so much for, like I said, in a world of darkness, giving us a moment of absolute beauty and sharing your artwork with us. So I appreciate that very much. I said where to find me. You can find me personally. I am on Facebook, but I don't really go there. My assistant goes there and does a lot of things to help promote the school. Facebook has kicked us off so much. I'm just done with them, but I am there. But mainly you guys will see me on Truth or on Twitter. And again, you can follow me on Truth at Lady Hamilton Art or Twitter at Lady Hamilton AR1. And then before I go, Sunday, normally I don't have guests, but I am having a guest this Sunday. I'm thrilled. I've been really inspired to talk about, and thank you, God, because it's on his mind. I often wonder, like, how does God go through this? I mean, how did God even give his son and see the tortures and the sins of what he had to endure? And how does God watch with all this suffering? Because thank heavens I'm not him, because I would be lighting the world on fire. You know, I mean, I can barely even go through my own little hill and challenges that I fight with the youth. I don't know how he can watch this, and I don't know, maybe that's why it rains all the time. I don't know, because I sure do cry a lot about it. But it's put it really on my heart. Sorry, everyone. It's been really put on my heart to talk about these transgender movement and the realities of these transgender surgeries. Like I said, it's absolutely mortifying that our youth are going through this, and there you are. I mean, it's in small towns. It's going through every school, in every communities. I mean, what is pornography and pedophilia seems to be the next new normal. This is absolutely unacceptable. Talking to 5-year-olds about changing their sex. I mean, when they can't even make a decision, they don't even have the capability, excuse me, the capability to even understand. This is not dress up. These could be life killing surgeries. They're definitely life altering, and the surgeries back are even worse. And we are just sitting there watching our youth think this is just the next new trend, when this is mortifying. I mean, if you want to be an adult and you've researched it and you know what every detail is, and you're an adult and you make that decision for yourself, then that is up to you. But our little ones are not making this choice. Our little ones have no understanding what this actually is. And this is a real problem. And parents out there, we have to fight against it. And it might not go away immediately. Like I said, this is law, and mainly through Title IX. But we have to find other avenues. We have to just stand up and say no. But my guest on Sunday is a transgender. His name is Ollie London. And not only did he go through the transgender surgeries, he also went back through the reconstructive surgeries. And I'm so thrilled that he's coming on to bring us awareness, to talk about this horrific reality of what these are doing, how he was indoctrinated, how he was, how this changed his life, how he had to come back from these surgeries, how it's affecting his life today, the reality of what this actually does to a person. So I'm really thrilled to have him on. He will be on this Sunday. My show is Sundays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And like I said, I've been really inspired to make sure that I'm bringing this awareness, because this is not dress up. This is not something that you can just, this is life altering, if not life taking. Some of these surgeries can literally kill you, or the reconstructions may take your life, but they're definitely life altering. This is not even a normal life. They want you to think that, oh, you can just take a few pills and everything's going to be okay. No, it's not. And these are tragedies. So it's absolutely an honor to actually speak to somebody, unfortunately, that's gone through a tragedy like this, to bring you this awareness. Again, that's going to be Headmaster's Homeroom on Sundays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll be sharing that out on my social medias. So I would really appreciate it if you guys came and saw this, shared that out, because our youth, and they're trying to hide this from parents now. I know in California too, that if you do not let your children transition, they can take your children away. I mean, this is just mortifying, and it must be stopped. And we must do everything we can to help our children. And so this will be a really powerful show as well. Also, you'll have Nurse Patrick on, because after that, we are going to need to know how to de-stress. And I love it when he comes on and gives us health tips and different avenues for us to, he really believes thy food is thy medicine. God's food is our medicine. And he's got great, wonderful, natural ways for us to heal. And he's got great words for us to and advice for us to take, and things that we can try, because, it gets hard. It gets hard to fight these battles and go through this day to day. But if we can take some of these natural remedies, or I believe he's going to be speaking to us about meditation and being outside with nature. I'm really thrilled that he's going to take his time to give us tips on how to survive these daily disasters. I really, really am grateful, everyone, again, like I said, that you're here with me. Again, please like, follow, or share. That means the world to me. And if there's any way you can help out with the families in Maui, or help our youth, I know that my school alone would be utterly grateful for you, and we definitely could use your help. I always like to finish my shows with a song that I find inspiration. It seems like I've been playing this, a few of my favorites lately, but I do say a prayer before I start my shows. And I always ask, okay, what song do you want me to play, Lord, at the end? And he keeps wanting me to play these songs. And you guys saw that from my first guest. All youth are possible. It doesn't matter what your disability is. It doesn't matter what your background is. With the right love and the right guidance and the right support, you can become anything you want to. And look what he's doing, and look at the fight that he's fighting, and look at the future that he's going to have. And I believe in it. I believe that we can all help each other. I honestly encourage you to please get to know your neighbors, get to know your community. We have a lot more in common. They want us to think that we are alone and keep us divided, but we all care about our families. We have a lot more in common than they ever want you to think that you have. And I do the same thing. You don't have to agree on everything, but you're going to find a common ground. And just to have the support of each other is wonderful. And it's been an absolute pleasure to be with you tonight. And I hope to see everybody on Sunday. Be blessed. I pray for you every single day. And I want you guys to know that you have my heart. And I hope to see you again soon. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night. Let's add this to the stream, because this is the song that the Lord wants me for you to hear. So have a great night, everyone, and be blessed.
broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can't find the fighter, but I see it in you, so we gonna walk it out and move mountains. We gonna walk it out and move mountains. Our eyes like the day, our eyes unafraid, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. Our eyes like the day, our eyes unafraid, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. Silence is quiet, and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe. I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll bring the world to its feet. Mountains, bring it to its feet. Mountains. Our eyes of the day, our eyes unafraid, and do it 1,000 times again. And for you, for you, for you. All we need is love, and for that we have each other, and for that we have each other, and we will rise, and we'll rise up, we'll rise. Our eyes of the day, our eyes up. In spite of the air, I will rise, we will rise.